If you guys are a fan of the show, you know that my favorite freshwater fishing day ever, at least with me on a fishing rod, is without question the lake trout show that we filmed about 5 years ago at Williams Fork Reservoir in Colorado. That laker population has since declined significantly, which is a long story I'm not going to get into, but back at that time there were some big lake trout in there, and I caught some really nice ones in there with a big giant tube jig. The key that day though was exactly the same thing, is bouncing that bait ever so slowly on the bottom, just like I'm doing on today's show, where the bait's just moving like this much, right? Comes up and sets right back down on the bottom. Or maybe I'm just hanging it this far off the bottom and just barely hanging it there. In no case do they get the bait just straight dropping. I don't think I've ever caught a lake trout on the bait just straight plummeting through the water column, or if I have, it's been very, very few of them. They want it down somewhere near the bottom or traveling horizontally like a jerkbait, which we have done well with lakers with. For whatever reason, the straight spiral drop doesn't get them like it does some other fish. The power switch is great for that, but that's not a great lake trout technique. So just using it as a lift and drop bait with bottom contact, and you can see how much lead's in there, it's very heavy. That's really the key to the whole thing of getting these fish to bite, is that little bit of bottom contact. Bernie used to tell me that mud would puff off the bait every time it hits the bottom and get their attention. I don't know that I can tell you that. I just know that if I start lifting this thing a whole bunch, doing a big lift and drop, my catching goes right out the window in a hurry. I do better just hanging it without moving it at all than anything else. And the beauty of the power switch is you can do any of that with it. I can even fish it horizontally. Let's say I had seen some up in the water column, or maybe some risers. I could very easily fish this horizontally in the water column. Got them, there we go. They're not rainbows, I don't think. So we'll lock down right here. And I believe we're gonna get another very average lake trout. I'll spare that one from the net. And guys, that's exactly what we're talking about right there. I could see the group, and because they're in groups, I'm pretty convinced that we're fishing for very average lakers. And he don't want to be in the boat, so we're gonna get him out of here. We don't need him in the boat, we're not keeping him, and I don't like to hurt fish. But hopefully that whole sequence shows up. I could see the whole group of fish. I drop the bait right into him, start jigging it, and sure enough, bang. And so the beauty of this thing is I can jig it every which way. So every time I see the fish, I can see how they react to it. If they don't react, I jig it more. If they run up on it, don't bite it, I'll hold it really still. It just depends on how the fish show up on the bait. But it's a cool little bait right there, and it is getting chewed up. This box came to my house a year before these came to market. Notice they don't have any color to them. They're all the same color. That's because that allows me to dye them any color I want. So they're not there to test colors, they're there to test action and durability, which is what I was doing here. On the lake trout show, ironically, this bait did a bunch of the damage. This is one of those, has still no color to it. Another one of them right here, again, still has no color to it. This is the silver bullet color that it came out in, but there's no color to it. I'm a big fan of translucence. And you say, okay, well, these baits are 30, 40 feet down. There's no light down there. I understand, which means there's no color down there that's gonna make a giant difference either. It's this tapping on the bottom that makes a bigger difference than anything else. And my lake trout success over the years of me doing it, I've caught them on greens and whites and blacks. It doesn't really, the color has never been the single biggest issue. The action is definitely the issue, and of course, where you throw it in the first place. When it comes to jigging for lake trout, I'm all in on spinning tackle. And I know some guys do it in casting gear. For me, it's just more fatiguing. I want to be able to just hang that rod in my hand and just barely hold on to it and just barely pick the bait up and move it like we keep harping on. And that is so important. The reason I want to be able to just let the rod hang in my hand is bite detection. Bite detection with lakers is a real thing, because unlike a bass, his suction feeder, boom, he just sucks something in his mouth. He's got a whole mouthful of it. He's not going to spit it out. He's named for the size of his mouth. A lake trout's more timid than that, and he's a bite feeder. So he's going to swim, he's just going to bite it. And he might only bite the tip of it. He might be holding on to it. The other thing is he's 50 feet below your boat or more. He's holding on to your bait. Bite detection and hook setting is very, very important. So in all cases, I'm rigged with the little bait right here, which is what we were doing on that particular day. It's a very long fluorocarbon leader. If you can see, the fluorocarbon leader is all the way up at the tip of the rod, which for me is a long fluorocarbon leader. Second of all, it's got the braided X9 braid right here, 15-pound X9 braid. Could be as light as 10, as heavy as 20. If I was targeting big lakers with the big bait, I'd be up in the 20-pound range. If I'm, in this case, I could be 10 and be fine. This is the size that did most of the damage for us up at Chambers on this particular day, and that's been a great deal. The rods are all fast or extra fast action because I need the sensitivity and the instantaneous hook set. And the biggest thing for me with lake trout is learning to get those hook sets. You can't do what you do with bass, with drop down and then pop them. You literally have to be really quick, more like if you're vertical jigging. If you're used to spoon fishing, where you're vertical jigging a spoon or a blade bait, that's kind of hook set you need. It has to be immediate because they aren't going to hold on to it for very long, even with the power bait in it, and you need to be quick about the hook set. That's the hardest thing, is knowing your bit and getting that hook set. Even though they're right below the boat, that sensitivity of the braided line and the faster, extra fast rod will help you out, and letting that rod just hang in your hand will do the rest of it from there. The other thing is I tighten the drag a bunch, because more than I normally would, so that it only slips a little bit on a full force hook set. And the reason is I need to pull this bait through their teeth. Let's say we're talking about bigger lakers, like the ones at Williamsport. I need to be able to pull this through their bite and get that hook to bury, and that's very important. So I can always back the drag off a little bit. In the case of lakers, if you set up on one and you know right away it's a giant, once you're hooked good, you can back the drag off a little bit. I want to point out that that's opposite of what I normally talk about with something like a jerk bait or something like that, where I run my drags very soft, because then every time I'm popping the bait, if a fish hits it while it's moving, the drag will give and I won't have the potential ripping hooks out of them. In that case, I can always tighten the drag if the fish runs. In the case of the laker, I need all that drag force to get him hooked, and if I realize it's a giant and he's gonna bulldog me, I'll back the drag off just a little bit, but I gotta get the hook set first. Got him, there we go. All right. And that's why we do that, guys. You just stay tight on the bottom right there, and keep watching that graph, and it's why I get so quiet. Again, it's gonna be just an average laker, guys. We're not trying to put giants in the boat by any stretch. In fact, I probably could have kept him out of the net. But the whole point of it is just, again, to show you that it's all about how I'm working this bait. And if you can see, there's a perfect shot of that bait stuck in his face right there, that power switch. That's the 3-inch power switch. And it's got plenty of weight to it that even though I'm fishing it 40 feet deep, I can catch them no problem with just this little bait. And so you can see I've got a leader knots clear up here. So it's a real long leader, like 6 feet long. And then there it is, the little 3-inch power switch. I actually have 3 of them rigged on the boat right now. I've got a 4 1/4, a 3, and a 2 1/2 all rigged. So far this one's been bit twice in 5 minutes, so we'll take it.